Joe here in the workshop. Today I'm going to talk about bandsaws. We'll talk about some from the smaller sized ones to the larger sized ones. And we'll even talk about some of the tabletop versions and mini bandsaws as well. Plus we'll talk about some of the handheld ones. The larger size bandsaws such as this one is usually used to cut stuff like these logs or some of the larger size wood, so that way you can cut it down and be able to work with it a lot easier. For a hobbyist, the bigger size blades could be able to cut into something like the Star Wars gun. So if you wanted to turn it into something else, you could be able to cut right across and take the pieces off without having to use a handsaw to cut into it, and it'll make your job a lot easier. A smaller bandsaw such as this one gives you the ability to control it a lot better, and you could take like a piece of plastic like this and be able to cut it down to a size like this. Yeah, the thicknesses is different, but it's still the same concept. You just come in and you can get closer to the blade without having to worry about it being as dangerous as the bigger one. And you just come around and cut, and before too long you'll be running your piece along the blade like this, and you'll end up with that shape. And you just get it kind of rough with the bandsaw, and then you can be able to come in with your files or a piece of sandpaper and sand it down, and then you'll have what you need. And that's not to say that the blade of a bandsaw is not dangerous. They are very dangerous, and you're going to want to watch yourself when you're close to it. You don't want to get your hands right up on the blade. This circle right here is a good reference point, and I'll show you a little closer here. And if you keep your fingers within that circle and stay away from that blade, you'll be fine. You don't really need to get right up on it to be able to cut your stuff. All you need to do is just get close enough to guide your piece through, and you'll be okay. Okay, let's take something like this Cobra base. This is a project that a lot of people's been waiting for me to get back started on, and it's been years since I've been able to get any of these made, and you're about to be able to see some of the way that I actually made a couple of them. It's a little bit of a different process now, but this still, the bandsaw plays a big part in it. And I'm just going to go ahead and show how I was doing them, so that way you got a good idea of how this bandsaw can do a lot of stuff for you. So as you see, it doesn't take too much effort on the bandsaw, and you get your shape, and all you have to do from there is sand the edges on either a belt sander, or you can do it by hand, and then you can start assembling. And as you saw on that part, I was doing some precision cutting, and I was actually cutting sideways on the blade so I could be able to get these shapes cut out. And you can do that with the bandsaw, and it kind of works in a way like if you're sanding, and if you want to look at it as that type of an idea, but It's not exactly, but still, it gives you the shape that you're looking for. And there is a lot of sawdust that kicks up, but that's why you wear a dust mask whenever you're doing this. And then once you're done cutting it out, then the same thing as the bigger piece, you're just going to use some sandpaper or files and sand the edges. Smaller bandsaws work about like the scroll saw, so you just use it to do the more precision type of stuff. You're going to get close into your part, and you're wanting to be able to do the details and stuff like that. And that's what the smaller bandsaws are for. Scroll saws, you're going to end up coming in, and if you're going into a real tight area, or if it's even an area that you couldn't necessarily do with a bandsaw, like it's a center point that you need to cut out, then a scroll saw, you can be able to take the blade and push it through the area and then cut it out. And so I wanted to include talking about the scroll saw, because to me it does fall into the bandsaw family, because it's part of the electric type saws and stuff like that that you're going to probably want to have for this type of hobby, because you're going to be doing all these bigger type of cuts, and it's just another item that you really would probably do good having. It's a little bit of money, but it just depends on what you're doing and whether or not you're going to make your money back, or if you just already had the money and you just need it for your hobby. It's up to you. This is an example of one of the mini bandsaws or tabletop versions. This is what the handheld bandsaws look like. They're usually used on job locations and a lot of times industrial work, but they can be used for hobby type of tools and stuff like that as well. There are various size blades to be able to use, and for the most part people like to use the thinner blades whenever you're working with plastics. Generally the thicker blades is going to be used for doing woodworking. I use this thicker blade because I like to use it to cut the bigger stuff out with. This is mostly used to do like cutting metal or aluminum, but it cuts through plastic real easy, so there's no real reason that you can't use it for that option either. And for those who just cannot absolutely buy a bandsaw and you just don't have the money, because they can be expensive, there is other options. There are the hand saws like this that's got the real thin blade, and you can be able to come in and cut your items out by hand. It's going to take you a little bit of time, but if you're doing it just by yourself as a one-off type of an idea and you're wanting to make something for yourself, then that little extra time is not going to be too big of a thing, because all you have to do is just start cutting it out. Plus, you could also use the carpet knife, and you can come along and score around it and cut your shape out, and just once you pop it loose, then sand the edges same way that I have to do it from doing it on a bandsaw, and you can be able to still be able to assemble your playset without any problem. Yes, it's going to take effort, and I'm not going to try and say that it's very easy to do it. I'm just trying to show you some ideas, so that way if you want to attempt it, this is all of the process that it takes to be able to make something like this. And this is cutting it out of plastic. And this is the whole idea that a lot of people's been wanting, because it's going to hold up a lot better than that cardboard stuff that a lot of the play sets are made as, and it's just going to look better. And then you're able to make stuff like this, which again was cut on a bandsaw. And once you do it on the bandsaw, you're able to start putting the parts together and create what you're trying to make. And you can put your figures there to display, and of course a kid could play with it if he wants to, put his figure there and have him working at the computer console or any of that type of thing. Or like I said, if you're wanting to just display it, you can put it on a shelf with the figure on it and do some kind of a setup where it's inside a lab or whatever you're trying to do, and have a real nice display to be able to show off your collection. And like I said, I have a different way of doing it now. I'm using a CNC machine and other more advanced type of ways of cutting it out, because the other way is of course longer, and whenever you're making multiples it's going to take you days, weeks, months, however long to be able to make as many as people end up wanting whenever you're doing some of these type of things. And so what I'm doing is going to be a little quicker. But like I said, if you're a hobbyist and you're wanting to make these parts yourself to be able to have for your own display, and you don't want to pay someone else to do it, this is a solution to be able to do it. And that only touches on some of what you can do on bandsaws. I just wanted to give a basic idea so people can be able to look at it and not really be as afraid of the bandsaw as even I was whenever I first started working with them, because it is a little intimidating whenever you're looking at them, having the blade spinning, and it's you worry about your finger getting cut off. So this is a good tool to be able to have though for working in the hobby, and it's been used in the woodworking hobby for a long time, and there's no real reason to not use it for doing play sets and toys and other type of things. There's even a lot of the people that work with the foam is using band saws now to cut out their shapes, and it's just easier than using a carpet knife. So hopefully that showed you a few things that maybe you didn't already know about the band saws. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell icon so that way you'll know whenever I upload next week. See you then.